Welcome, Wild One, to this very special chapter, because this week I invite you to explore with me as I try to contact my ancestral line by using plants from long ago and items from my own family's history. I prepared some tea and symbolically poured this for myself and my ancestors to share. I wanted to make contact with those who had walked before me in my bloodline. I set my intentions as I stirred in a clockwise direction. I prepared my altar space to create an area of focus with images related to my family in the center. I gave the tea in offering to my loved ones and had a candle burning to raise my energy and keep our connection open and strong. Some people use symbols of death, such as bones or even blood. I prefer to use other symbols like this Labradorite skull, as I like to use the colour purple for ancestral work, and this crystal is said to have metaphysical properties which help to connect the third eye and crown chakras. I spent some time charging the skull with intention and directing the crystal as to its purpose before setting it in place. I used other pieces too, including fossils as symbols of the past, a photograph of a deceased relative who acts as my guide and protector, and herbs such as rosemary, which would have been used often by my local ancestors. I arranged the rosemary into the rune shape for Otala, which symbolises home and inheritance, and intuitively felt to be a good indicator to the energies around me that I wanted to connect to my ancestors. I started to work with the cards, and the rune for algaes fell upside down. The rune for tiwas also made its appearance. I came to understand that my message was that I needed to be more specific in my questions to my ancestors. Though runes have their meanings, when working intuitively and with other energies, I do get messages come to me as images or words, or a very strong and clear idea or sense. Over the years, I have learned to trust my additional senses and not to dismiss them. I also received the rune of teamwork and partnership, and felt this was a message to say that they were here, but that I needed to clarify what I needed. This was also further clarified by the rune of the sun, Soalo, which appeared upon the reversed algaes. I knew that this was indicating not so much a broken connection to spirit, but one which needed further clarity. I asked questions using the Sacred Symbols Oracle deck. I received symbols for the masculine line, such as the father, butterflies which had been landing on me or even flying close to my face for the week preceding this reading, and I had been wondering if I would receive confirmation that these synchronicities were meaningful in connection with my family line, so I was not at all surprised to receive this. The bow and arrow was for focus, and the pyramid appeared, which symbolises ancient connections, past lives, deep roots, atonement, and ancient wisdom. I also finally received the symbol for the element of air. I understood the message, which is very personal and not just for me, so I'm careful what I share here. But this message indicated that there was an inherited condition through the male family line which would create issues related to focus, specifically related to communication and mental processing. This is why it connected to the element of air. For quite some time I sat and wrote down some questions for my ancestors. There was a feeling in the room that I was not alone. It was not a dark or scary feeling, it was a feeling of being connected to a larger version of myself. I could feel through my own energy that I was part of a lineage and that this went far, far back. I could feel a definite connection with the energy of those whom I come from. Of the questions that I asked, one was about where they are, and I was shown the image of a shadow, and this made sense to me that the spirits of my ancestors are like a shadow, ever present, but can be called forwards and also can recede. Sometimes you cannot even tell they are there. I spent a few hours communing with them, and as my own energy dissipated, so I felt them recede like the shadow. I spent a few days afterwards being quite drained of my energy, so I believe that this work takes additional energy, as through me the connection is sustained.
Feeling the blood of the line, reaching my ancestors way back in time, a message from me unto thine, sending you light through the web we design, a ceiling of stars in the sky. Cassiopeia, Orion, you shine, diamonds on velvet divine, healing the blood of the family line. This feeling of my ancestral healing, peeling through the veils like a gossamer, free me.
I visited Avalon Marshes to see the Walrus, which is a replica Viking trading vessel based on a wreck excavated from Roskilde Fjord in Denmark in 1962. Avalon Archaeology is volunteer-led. The volunteers give a day a week to develop the amazing replica buildings on site. The buildings include a Saxon long hall, a dining room of a Roman villa, and an Iron Age roundhouse. This chapter will be largely music so that you can immerse yourself in Anglo-Saxon history and imagine living like our ancestors did. Thank you to Avalon Archaeology for giving permission for me to film and share on social media. Now we come to mysterious mugwort, for this herb was held in the highest regard by my most ancient of ancestors, the Celts and the Druids. If you haven't heard of the 9 herbs charm, Naigon Werta Galdor, then I shall explain that this was a spell concocted around 10th century CE. It is also known as the 9 wort spell because it contains 9 plants which include mugwort. Although in this episode I shall not be conjuring the Naigon Werta Galdor, I think we can see that the herb mugwort must have something special going for it, if its charms have stood such a very long test of time. As always, Wild One, please do your own research and consider medical advice before you try anything new, because herbs and plants can cause reactions and do have side effects. An outcome can never be guaranteed, and every body reacts differently. This video is not medical advice and should be viewed as entertainment only. In the case of mugwort, it is documented to have effects on the uterus and is not safe for pregnant women, those who are trying for a baby, or those who are breastfeeding. Many plants and grasses also can be risky for those with asthma or allergies to other plants within the same plant family. Mugwort is metaphysically used by witches as both a protective and healing herb, as well as a way to activate astral projection and lucid dreams. Some consider mugwort to aid with sleep problems and digestive issues, though personally, I found it gives me digestive issues unless I am very careful in my dosage and also my frequency of use. For me, it definitely helps with my sleep, and perhaps is even a little too helpful, as I went from only sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night to sleeping 8 hours a night, but also craving staying in bed for most of the day, with a sort of mugwort-induced hangover. Mugwort contains thujone, which is a compound found in absinthe and which is toxic in large quantities, so another reason why you should be very careful and respectful and responsible before incorporating this herb into your witchcraft practices. When working with the ancestors, I believe it is important to research the herbs, foods, drinks and ways of life which those ancestors would have been accustomed to. As I also wanted to work with my oldest ancestors, the Celts and Druids, I purchased some mugwort for both my ancestral altar and for dream work. My ancestral altar sits in the corner of my windowsill. It contains a Welsh cat, which used to be my grandmother's as I am part Welsh, bloodstone for ancestral magic, obsidian for similar purposes as it has volcanic origin and is said to be revealing and often used by shamans, the Labradorite skull, which to me represents the beauty of the process of death, as well as the psychic and spiritual aspects. Lavender from a local farm, another herb which for centuries has been used by my ancestors and which is connected to love, remembrance and death. A small fossil from a nearby beach which appears to be the vertebra of an ichthyosaur. An ammonite fossil, which apart from its ancient nature also is symbolic of the spiral of life, death and growth. And some rosemary, which is an ancient herb grown locally with connotations of remembrance, protection, and was used by the Celts. The rosemary is off this land, and as the plant grew, it would have energetically made a connection to the earth, which has been here throughout the ages. I have some hazelnuts, which were also gifted to me by my mother, which the Celts believed gave wisdom and inspiration, and the rabbit belonged to my grandfather and was given to me upon his death. I prepared the mugwort near the Otala rune and used my mortar and pestle to crush it so that the properties could be released. I added it to my teapot with some boiling water and let it steep for a little while. As I waited, I thought about my ancestors, and I asked for their messages to be given to me in my dreams. It has a faint grassy smell, and I am careful not to use too much or to leave it steeping for too long, otherwise I find that it becomes bitter and is not healthy for me. According to my research, this herb is not considered a hallucinogenic. However, I am very sensitive to it and I will have very vivid dreams as well as a foggy head during the day afterwards. For this reason, I would discourage drinking it before driving or anything where you need to be very wakeful. I've also read many blogs where people have said it gives them nightmares. Personally, I think that it probably brings out whatever is affecting you in your subconscious, so what kind of dreams you might have cannot be guaranteed. I find that I stay asleep and need an alarm to wake me, which is very unusual for me without mugwort tea. I drank mugwort tea 1 cup per night an hour before bed over 5 or 6 days. By the last day, I could feel the effects permanently, and so I agree with what some people say that it is not good to drink this every day. I can also vouch for the claims that it induces menstrual cramps, as it definitely did so for me, so again, this is not suitable for pregnant women or those who are trying for a baby. Finally, I made a little tincture of mugwort and gave this an offering to my family and guardian in spirit, which I have left on my altar. I continue to work with mugwort in moderation, and I continue to research it as much as I can. It's no surprise that in the Western world, when we think about connecting with our deceased relatives, we will often think of graveyards and the traditions that we know, such as visiting the grave of a loved one, the laying down of flowers, and timing this with special holidays, anniversaries, and birthdays. Although in the UK, most graveyards have an obviously traditionally Christian overtone, many churches were built on top of pagan sites of worship and the earth which existed prior to Christian conversion. So this hallowed ground belongs to many customs from long ago and can be visited respectfully by anyone who wishes to connect with this land and its dead. In modern popular culture, the image of a witch or a spiritualist connecting with the deceased evokes mockery and elaborate seances, whereas, in contrast, the traditional, especially Victorian Christian imagery of quietly visiting a graveside, dressed in modest black attire and offering gifts of flowers as a symbol of both mourning and eternal life, is generally considered more normal and acceptable. I believe that all belief systems are welcome and should be respected, whether traditional or more tailored to one's own experiences and personal beliefs. There are many similarities between belief systems, such as the placement of stones or markers, the inscription of spiritual symbols or words, the planting of symbolic herbs and plants nearby, and the laying down or offering of blessings and gifts. A key difference between faiths and systems of belief does appear to me to be what happens to us after we go, as well as the ability of those left behind to accept the finality of a loved one's death. Although this graveyard's oldest headstones appear to be from the Victorian period, I can still see the symbols of those belief systems from 200 years ago, as the ivy creeps over the stones and smothers the nearby plants with its symbolic imagery of something everlasting, which climbs upward towards the heavens, joining heaven with earth and uniting the departed loved ones with those standing beside their gravestones. As the term pagan is a broad term meaning a person who holds beliefs other than those of recognized religions, each pagan will have varying thoughts and feelings about the process of life, death, and the possibility of afterlife. Although this hallowed ground is currently Christian, the origin of the earth beneath it will have been walked upon by many people before and is pre-Christian. The southwest of England was a well-established Celtic kingdom, and the Somerland, which is modern-day Somerset, was dominated by the early Dumnoni tribe. It is widely accepted that the ancient Celts who lived during 700 BCE to 400 CE believed in an afterlife. They treated their dead by burying them in tombs with artefacts which were likely intended to be taken with them to the other world beyond this material existence that we assume is the definition of being alive. The Celts left very little written history of their beliefs, and so much of their systems of belief and ways of life were documented by the Greeks and Romans. Do you believe that you have a soul? The Celts seem to believe that your soul resided in your head rather than your whole body. The religious leaders of the Celts, the Druids, would lead important rituals, which sometimes involved sacrifices, but which often included prayers to the Celtic gods and goddesses and offerings of food, drink, and weapons. Death was a rite of passage, and the spirit would continue, and I imagine this to be similar to how they would have observed the seasons changing and ending, for the Celts would have followed the birth and death of nature's cycles. The Celts existed in Britain approximately 750 years before Jesus was born. In the 3rd century AD, Christianity came into Britain. From what I have read, Celts accepted Christianity until the Middle Ages, at which point the Christian Church replaced Celtic religion. A complex history unfolded until 1100 AD, when the Christian Church gained control over the Celtic religion. I believe that Roman Celtic religion was strongly present in the late 4th century, although Christianity was also being adopted in Western Roman areas. Towards the end of Roman rule in early 5th century, changes occurred in southern and eastern Britain as a result of the invasion of the Anglo-Saxons. Latin was replaced by Old English, and Anglo-Saxon variations of Germanic paganism were dominant. Many gods and goddesses were worshipped. In the late 6th century, the Christianization of the Anglo-Saxons happened, meaning that the population of England, which had previously followed diverse pagan beliefs, converted to Christianity and adopted Christian worldviews. In the 5th century, the Roman Empire had receded from Britannia, where many pagan Germanic tribes lived. The Gregorian mission was Pope Gregory the Great's Christian mission, which intended to convert Britain's Anglo-Saxons to Christianity. The Gregorian missionaries went to Kent in the southeast of Britain and proceeded to convert King Ethelbert of Kent, who was previously pagan yet had a Christian wife. King Ethelbert allowed the missionaries to preach freely in his capital. Over time, a traditionally Roman Christianity was established in Kent and the surrounding countryside. There are conflicting historical theories for what motivated Gregory, but one possibility is that at that time, Britain was the only part of the former Roman Empire which was still pagan. Gregory may have been motivated to convert Britain because he wanted to bring the last pagan area of the prior empire back under the control of Christianity. Large-scale conversions occurred during early medieval times, during the first year of the missionaries' arrival in Kent. According to the historian Bede, further missionaries returned with a letter to King Ethelbert that urged him to force the conversion of his pagan followers. By accounts, the letter also encouraged the destruction of all pagan shrines. However, it also documented that Gregory also wrote a letter to the Bishop Mellitus suggesting that pagan shrines be cleansed of idols and converted to Christian use rather than destroyed. King Ethelbert of Kent died, and subsequently Mellitus was expelled and did not return, and other bishops were also exiled. Meanwhile, Ethelbert's daughter married Edwin of Northumbria, and gradually Christianity spread to the north. Paganism was still practiced in Kent until the 630s, and it was not declared illegal until 640. And in 686, the last British pagan king was dead. At the turn of the 8th century, paganism had ceased, and there were few records of pagan practices, beliefs, or rituals. Today, when I sit on the land of my ancestors, I respect that my bloodline comes from an ancient network of people who back through the generations will have had diverse beliefs, and so I am connected to a rich history, and although I am not Christian myself, I can visit this place with respect and also honour my own pagan beliefs. Some treasures there. This chapter of my series is special to me because when I initially thought about making it about working with the ancestors, nothing could have prepared me for the real-life journey that I would embark upon. All in all, I'd say that this episode took a month or so to produce, and as I delved into the depths of history, deeper and deeper, I unearthed the memories, faces, and lifestyles of people who walked this earth thousands of years before me. So join me as I venture to the Museum of Somerset to look into the eyes of the Beaker people, to discover relics from Roman Britain, and to explore the ways in which people travelled and connected thousands of years ago. This chapter is about 6 minutes long, and due to the lighting combined with filming, may not be suitable for those who are photosensitive. I asked the museum staff if I could have permission to film and post on social media, and they were very supportive, even asking what project I was making. Tentatively, I explained that I wasn't entirely sure, as my original idea kept evolving, but basically I wanted to make a video about paganism, and I wanted to see any Celtic or Anglo-Saxon artefacts, as well as the boat, which I hoped was still here. The guide took me around to show me artefacts which would be in keeping with my creative ideas, and I'm grateful for how open-minded and encouraging they were. I was welcomed, and the first artefact that I was shown was this fertility statue, which was dug up at a crossroads. I looked at the tools which were made by the hands of people from between 4000 to 2000 BC. This axe, for example, was likely an ancient children's toy, and this bowl has traces of fat in it, probably a sign it was used for milk. This is known as the South Cadbury shield, which is over 3000 years old and would probably not have been used in battle. It would probably have been considered a sign of importance, perhaps a power symbol of the time. I stood in front of the faces of my ancient warrior ancestors of 200 to 50 BC. It is incredible to see their bones, tangible evidence of their existence in the marshes of Glastonbury. Their battle scars from sword wounds to their heads tell the shocking story of their last moments. I connected to the ancient burial traditions, something that many people still do today. I imagined being the first person to dig this up, this Roman hoard of over 1,000 Roman coins. This is known as the Shapwick hoard. I hope you can see the images on them. I did the best I could to share these with you without a professional camera. I was thinking about the last time these were in someone's pocket being used, a Roman perhaps, as some of these coins come from the reign of Mark Antony. Think of the hands that made these pots, such beautiful skills such a long time ago. We often think of ourselves as an advanced civilization, but I wonder if we are getting things wrong. Working faster, harder, and in great quantities does not produce the unique texture and pattern of this pot, which reminds me of my own humanity. Understanding where we come from and how tribes or communities lived, cooked, hunted, traded, and moved brings me back home to myself. It was the memory of seeing this boat which made me come to the museum today. This was carved by the hands of people local to me around 350 BC and was discovered in 1901, preserved in peat. This canoe would have been used to transport goods and animals. This female skeleton was found in a Roman grave, and she lived with her dog around 300 to 400 BC. Her dog has a broken leg and would have had a limp. As a woman who walks her dogs every day, I wondered if one day my bones will end up in a case in a museum of the future many thousands of years from now, and what people will be able to know about me and my pets just from looking at our skeletons. A strange thought. As I looked at mosaic floors, I thought about how people lived. what was simple and what was not. It is clear that for thousands of years, humans have fought. We have fought over land, money, religions, and beliefs. One way or another, we have fought for power and for our own identity. I believe that just like our ancestors did, we will continue to strive for survival and we will face many challenges. Yet we have also been given the talents and gifts to be creative, and we must ensure that we continue to connect to this land rather than exploit it. I hope that you enjoyed this brief visit to the Museum of Somerset with me. I highly recommend you to visit or to see your own local museum if you can. Many thanks to the museum and its staff for encouraging me to film and to create. I believe that we can harmonise our work with our ancestors by bringing actions into the living family relationships that we have around us, whether those family are biologically related to us or not. It is my mother's birthday soon, and she recently bought herself a Labradorite ring, so I've sought out some more Labradorite beads to make a bracelet that I hope will be a companion to her ring. I'll admit this was a daunting task for me, as I have no skills at jewellery making. In my first episode of this series, I said that a wish is like a seed, and that it is the intention of the wisher that brings the wish into reality. This is the notion behind the spell that I'm working on today. As a bracelet naturally forms a circle, and circles can be good protective tools to retain energy and build energy, I would like to make this a bracelet which protects my mother. I'm writing a petition, and I will mainly use fire and candle magic. I will use the beads, the rune rado, crimp beads, a cat charm, a black candle, lavender oil as well as cut lavender, a fountain pen with black ink, and paper and some tools. First, I wrote my petition. Then I turned it and I wrote my mother's name 3 times across the text, before folding this and placing it underneath the candle holder. I then dressed the candle with loving and protective lavender oil. Interestingly, as I did this, the dye from the candle made my hands look as if I was working with blood. The candle also had carvings in it and an inscription. I prepared my altar space to make the bracelet. I started to thread the beads onto the wire, which is apparently made in a similar way as the wires that hold up a suspension bridge, as it combines lots of threads of wire twisted together. I wanted 22 beads, as this is symbolic as a number of manifestation, so I used this number to breathe further energy into the protection charm of the petition. I added crimp beads on either end, and then the clasps and the cat charm. Carefully placed the bracelet around the candle and allowed the candle to fully burn out. So mote it be. I released the wish or the spell, and I trusted that the intention would come to pass. When I gave the bracelet to my mum, she was very pleased, and I believe the bracelet will provide protection to her on her journeys. Here we arrive at Glastonbury Abbey, a place steeped in history and mysticism. Since medieval times, the Abbey has been associated with being the mythical burial place of King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, and has also been linked to Joseph of Arimathea. The legend goes that Joseph of Arimathea came to England to bury the Holy Grail in a secret location to protect it. It is also said that the Grail could be buried below Glastonbury Tor. This is the same Grail that legend says King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table quested for. It is said that the thorn tree, which is in the Abbey grounds, came from Joseph of Arimathea's staff. Wild One, it is up to you to choose what you believe, but one thing is for sure, there is a feeling of magic and mystery here, and thousands of people every year travel to Glastonbury as pilgrims on their personal spiritual quests. This abbey was a monastic site founded in the 8th century. It was one of the most rich and powerful monasteries in England. It was also one of the last monasteries to be demolished under Henry VIII during his dissolution of the monasteries in 1539. And the last abbot was hanged, drawn and quartered at Glastonbury Tor for his allegiance to the Catholic Church. Nowadays, it is a place of cultural, religious, spiritual and historical significance. And I have come to visit the peaceful orchards and herb gardens. I hope you enjoy the magic and peace of this place like I do.
Feeling the blood of the line, reaching my ancestors way back in time, a message from me unto thine, sending you light through the web we design, a ceiling of stars in the sky. Cassiopeia, Orion, you shine, diamonds on velvet divine, healing the blood of the family line. This feeling of my ancestral healing, peeling through the veils like gossamer, free me. This feeling, feeling the blood of the line of reaching my ancestors way back in time, a message from me unto thine, like gossamer, sending you light through the web we design, a ceiling of stars in the sky. Of Cassiopeia, Orion, you shine, diamonds on velvet divine, healing the blood of the family line. It's feeling, it's feeling.
Next time on Wild Wish, join me next week for a super cozy chapter of countryside adventures to seek out seasonal offerings, some kitchen witchery with funny shaped vegetables, and more creativity with my crystal collection and witchy DIY as I continue to decorate my haunted cottage apartment for autumn. So see you next week, Wild One. Thank you for watching, like if you like, and subscribe if you vibe.